I'm tracking now.
So this is Blacktop Pulpit, Douglas Reformed Church. I'm Andrew, and this is Ken, and we're here to debate each other. I mean, we're here to talk about a sermon from Sunday morning. We have started the book of Genesis. We have gotten through verse 13 now, last week and this week.
Going too quick.
3 days of creation. Yeah. So it's really difficult to talk about narrative. That's what it is, historical narrative, because it doesn't hit you like, here's this doctrine, and here's this doctrine, and here's this doctrine, and here's how it applies, and here's how it applies, and here's how it applies.
And that's how we like it, too.
we love that because it's easy to know how it applies. But then you're reading narrative, preaching narrative, and it's like, okay, this is what God is doing. How does this apply to my life here and now? And I think I was talking to Katie about it this morning, even before the sermon. I was like, babe, I don't have much application to do. And she was like, that's okay. And I was like, is it? She's like, yeah, you preach the Bible.
That's right.
That's all you need to do. And if there's no application in the text, I guess it's not necessary for us to make application right now.
Well, you get kicked out of some churches for not having application.
I know.
That's what people go for.
Well, and some people
I don't care what the Bible says. Just tell me what it has to do with my life.
Some people only teach application, right? They'll read the Bible and then they'll go straight to application without explaining any text, without getting into doctrine at all.
Right.
And one of the things I want to focus on while we're in Genesis, especially the creation account in light of Romans chapter 1, verse 20, right? All of God's invisible attributes, they can be clearly seen in what has been made. And the Bible tells us that. So if we look at what has been made and what God did to make it, and at least what the Bible reveals about that, right? And why he made what he did.
Right.
We can know some things about God, which is really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I don't know. Where do you want to go from there?
I think that's a wrap.
End scene.
The shortest conversation we've ever had.
One thing I'm not getting into on Sunday mornings really is just major apologetics.
Sure.
Right?
Which you did mention, most people jump quickly to
apologetic, and then don't get the meaning of the text out, don't glean anything from the text, they just jump right into apologetics.
Yeah.
So Blacktop Pulpit is a place we can deal more with apologetics, I think, because we want to keep Sunday morning expository. That's the standard we've kind of set. I'd like to keep it.
Right.
And that doesn't mean apologetics on Sunday morning during the sermon is wrong. It just is going to be in line with the text.
There's a lot of text that has apologetics in it.
Right.
That's when
right.
You should be
and part of what Moses is doing is apologetics in his time, right?
Okay. Yeah.
So
I can see that.
Speaking in the context of all these ancient Near East myths,
right,
and in the context of all these gods, in the context of stories of order and chaos, which we talked about this morning, and he's speaking something profoundly different than that,
right,
into this society, into this culture, that's apologetics,
right?
As he's defending the one true God,
over
and against everything that people have invented.
And my goodness, back then, I mean, I wouldn't say there were more made up than there are today, because we just made new ones that are harder to identify unless you really think about it. But people actually, like the gods that you made up, you really like prayed to these deities and would do different rituals. Like it was real. Like today our gods that we make up are obviously not what we would consider like a being,
ethereal beings,
or something in authority. We worship our entertainment. We just made
entertainment,
different words for
money, power, popularity, fame. The government.
Different type of gods.
Yeah, things that are real tangible to us, but really they shouldn't be our gods. They should be our servants.
Right. So I could see that being one of the big contrasts between how a reader would enter Genesis 1 today versus a reader back in Moses' day, because those are pretty significant differences. We don't know what that's like. There are people in certain places of the world that totally can relate to this text.
They're like,
go to India.
I know what's going on. Yeah. Well, and not only that, but we're also reading with very Western minds,
right?
Very philosophical minds. Moses wasn't there.
Right.
Israel was not there. We are, they were not. And so we have to be careful about that too, reading our Western civilization into Genesis chapter 1, which seems kind of ridiculous when you say it, but
sure.
we do it. We do it all the time.
Sure. Well, what would be an example of reading our Western philosophies into Genesis?
So one example would be taking I want to know exactly how the world was made, right? I want to know the intricacies. I want to know the minutia, because this is what we do in Western science, right? We try to figure out the minutia. We make educated guesses about all the little things that happened, and we use the scientific process to do that in Western civilization, right? Moses wasn't working in those categories at all. Sure. But we go to Genesis 1 and we try to do that.
Sure.
And it just doesn't work. Because that's not the way Moses' brain worked.
Is that why we were so disappointed with what should have been a great video when Ken Ham debated Bill Nye?
I mean,
everyone's all pumped and ready, and like,
I was super disappointed because
what did you do?
Because that debate should have been easy for Ken Ham to handle.
Yeah,
he's a smart dude,
super smart. Yeah.
He should have been able to handle that very easily. But not only did he just miss the mark when it comes to debating and representing the text well, it would be so easy. Like Bill Nye would say, "Here's what your Bible teaches." It would have been so easy for Ken Ham to go, "Actually, no, it's not that clear cut. So you're arguing against claims that haven't even been made by anybody."
Right.
Boom, argument won. Okay, so the debate could have been won very easily. But not only that, but Ken Ham didn't even take the opportunity to share the gospel with Bill Nye in front of a live audience. Like, come on, man.
Yeah.
So I was disappointed on both of those points.
Yep.
Opportunities missed.
Man, that could have been one for the history books too.
It could have been.
But let's practice good old Christian book burning.
No, absolutely not. No. Christianity is not cancel culture.
No, we're not.
No, let's go back and watch
Let's
go back and watch some Greg Bonson debates. Let's watch James Whiten debate. Let's watch those guys.
Oh man, I just saw. I've been really wrestling. Actually, this isn't to plug it all. Well, it is a plug. It's not a paid plug. I've been wanting to subscribe to Canon Plus. Not you, the other Canon.
Canon Press Plus.
Canon Press Plus. Yeah, they're starting to push out some interesting stuff, and I've been wanting to. I've been wrestling with a couple different options of where I could, not only invest some of my money to help affect the culture, but our home. I like that type of material, and if there's other believers, and more so like really sound believers producing different types of content and interviews and movies, like that's awesome to me. So I just got another they're doing this to kind of just try to coax you, and it's working. But there was James White and Doug Wilson. They did an episode that you have to subscribe to watch on children and communion. So.
We got two different perspectives.
I really want to see that.
Well, we still need to find something for you and I to debate.
Yeah.
Oh man, in a friendly way.
We do. Do you think that would be one we can debate over though?
No, I think we're probably in the same place on that. Yeah.
Because I know they would hold obviously different positions on that.
Because Doug is for it and James is not. So there's that.
That'd be an interesting conversation from two really sound, really faithful guys.
Yeah.
Really smart.
The thing is, I don't have to pick a side. just enjoy it, man.
Oh,
learn
good point.
from it.
Good point.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a great argument there.
I'll have to get offended. Oh, man. Yeah. So, one of the questions that comes up, especially concerning the language of Genesis 1, which is kind of astounding when you notice what the language is in the Hebrew, is the inexact language referring to the 6 days of creation, right? You have, it almost seems nonchalant when you're reading the text in Moses' hand. Not in most English translations. I guess the English translators couldn't handle that. I don't know. But I mean, it says in the NASB, which is one of the reasons I really love the NASB.
Nerd version.
That's right. Dude, geeked up. You gotta stay geeked up. But the text literally translated reads something like, one day there was evening and morning. Something. There was evening and morning another day.
A day.
Another day.
Yeah.
A second day. There was evening and morning a third day. A third day.
Which makes me wonder why the band chose third day. Why the third day? Why did they fixate? Because you kind of hinted towards that sixth day being special. Why a third day?
Because Jesus rose from the dead on the third day. That's a different third day.
Well, what if maybe they're talking about Genesis, man?
I doubt it. But it's it's real interesting. So the language is nonchalant there, and then you have modern science, which I want to address this too, right? Which the pulpit's kind of a hard place to do that when your goal is to exposit the text.
Sure.
But that's why we have Blacktop Pulpit.
Yeah.
Right here. So you have modern science speaking of this, and now even leading scientists in the modern day disagree about origins and different theories and whatever, but the majority consensus is that there was an infinitesimal point, infinite gravity and near infinite gravity and density. You have to say near infinite because infinite gravity and density is an impossibility, scientifically speaking, right? Because of the laws of physics. Where do you get the laws, though? Okay, that's the next question.
I knew you were going to geek out of this episode here.
Oh, man.
I'm going to rate and bring it back there.
So you have the infinitesimal point of near infinite gravity and energy, right? And that expands. Mm-hmm. There's some kind of reaction that expands faster than the speed of light, but all at once, light and matter and time and energy and space, it all basically comes into existence from this infinitesimal point. And the universe is expanding at high rates of speed, and it's slowing down, and matter begins to condense together, energy begins to form, stars begin to form, planets begin to form, galaxies begin to form, black holes. Yep. This is the story that we hear. This is a majority consensus, right? And after slowing down so much, now there's this, what scientists imagine. It can't actually be seen or weighed or measured, but you see the effects of it, which is kind of interesting. They call it dark. There's dark matter, and then there's also dark energy, and dark energy is pushing the universe apart now, right? So after slowing down so much, now the expansion of the universe has started to speed up again, and there are two different theories regarding the end of the universe, right? How the universe will eventually end, because it can't just expand forever and ever and ever and ever and ever. It can't just keep expanding.
Why not?
If it did, everything would go cold and the universe would end in a whimper. And that's one theory. Mm-hmm. Or there will be a point at which the universe collapses back in on itself and ends in another bang. Right.
Whoa.
So either a bang or a whimper. Yeah. So majority consensus is right there. That's where Richard Dawkins is. That's where Bill Nye is.
Right.
All these Neil deGrasse Tyson. He's there. Mm-hmm. Right. And so we hear stories like that, and then we read the Genesis story, and it's like 6 days. 6 days. But all these really smart guys are saying this, right? But then the Bible says 6 days.
Right.
The earth was created in 6 days. Majority consensus concerning the beginning of life was the elements for life were present in the primordial ooze of young earth, right? And some kind of energy chemical reaction happened that produced heat in just the right way that formed the first single-celled organism, and that single-cell organism over generations and generations and generations of multiplying evolved into a multicell organism, and multicell organisms were asexual at first, and then all of a sudden, not all of a sudden, but over millions or billions of years, evolved into sexual organisms, and that eventually, produced humanity here at the top of the food chain. Well, and then scientists started saying, well, no, that can't be the case, because even according to Darwin, the fossil record would produce evidence. We haven't seen this evidence, so we've got to tweak our theory a little bit. And they came up with this idea, punctuated equilibrium. Yeah, so punctuated equilibrium is every few aeons, there's a jump in evolution that can't be tracked because it happens so quickly. How convenient.
Yeah, that is very
jumps,
convenient.
So it can't be tracked. And these are the smartest guys in the world who are saying this, guys who are so given to scientific method concerning most things and practice it well, probably most of the time, right? And these are the claims they're making, but then you read the Bible, it's like, no, God created plants right out of the ground. Well, God created people from the dust. God spoke animals into existence. God spoke birds into existence. And there seems to be two contradicting stories here. I love science.
I couldn't tell.
And I love.
Are Christians allowed to do science?
Yes. In fact, I think Christians should be better at science than non-Christians. Should be. And that's what I'm really sad about Ken Ham in that debate, because it just didn't pan out. I don't know.
We all have bloopers.
No, yeah, blips, bloops. Yeah, we've been watching Man in the High Castle, so every time I hear blip, I'm like, oh, 5 years gone, just like that.
Yep.
So how do we deal with this conflicting information, right? And this is one thing that we should reason through, right? Because even last week, I don't know, I spit off a bunch of verses about you need to understand the world, seek understanding. Don't just have a blind faith. Don't be ignorant. Actually think about stuff, and it's all over the Bible. I don't know, I quoted probably 12 references and in many more places than that. I didn't quote them, I listed them so people can go look at them later.
Right.
I guess
somebody did.
I guess kidding. Probably not. I think I got too excited and listed them too quickly.
Couldn't even write them down.
And people were like, huh?
You for real?
Yeah. And then just seeing faces, I was like, go look at it in my notes later.
Right.
Like, it'll be there. So how do we deal with this conflicting information, man? Because, I don't know, I want to know the truth.
Right.
No matter what claims are being made, I want to know the truth. And so I want to reason through this. How do we get there, and how can we know if the Bible is telling an accurate story?
Well, I think that's one of the first problems that a lot of people have is when we are faced with such scientific data that is claimed to be showing a certain thing that conflicts with creation. It causes a lot of believers to try to come up with ways to change what the narrative is essentially explaining. We'll say Moses in multiple books, which gets at the heart of what God is doing here, and the glory of creation, which is one of the most exciting parts, because when you think, and I was just thinking, like, you think of an earthquake, which actually in Arizona we've had quite a few over the years, minor ones, but you think of some of these major earthquakes and they wouldn't pale in comparison to what you imagine God speaking, like you see here, like, and God said, it's like, so God speaks, it's like, let there be, and then whatever he
and there
says,
is.
and just
it
like
is.
that, and then you imagine an earthquake, like, pales in comparison to what creation must have been like. Whatever day was at work, imagine the stars, just forming, the earth which was formless, coming into shape. The earth, like, this isn't I mean, that's like the earthquake, but I don't know if it's getting at as far as what we do with it, but I I think one of the important things to start from, like a starting base, is like you said, like, I want to know truth. So that's where we deal with what we're going to believe, because the world has a lot of claims from a lot of different people with a lot of different worldviews, and we have to look at them and say, well, which one's true and why?
Why? There's the question. Why is that true?
Right.
And even looking at Christians historically, when I say historically, I mean very recent history, right? Mm-hmm. I looked at the Genesis account. Historically, Christians believe literal 6-day consecutive 24-hour days. That's what Christians believe historically. And then modern scientific claims have been made. I want to be careful not to say this is the position of science itself,
right,
because that's a practice.
Yep.
Right. That's not a worldview. It's a practice. It's a way of discovering information.
Yep.
Scientific method. Form a hypothesis, test that hypothesis. If it doesn't pan out, form a new hypothesis, test that hypothesis. Boom. So first of all, for something to be scientific, it has to be testable, falsifiable, right? And many of the truth claims being made that are being put in the realm of science are not falsifiable. Such are origins. You can't test that.
Right.
It's not falsifiable. You can't do it. Because you can't go back and you can't observe the universe happening. The closest we can get is looking far enough into outer space, and since light only travels at a certain speed, right? The farther you look into outer space, the further back you're looking in time. Basically, because light only travels at a certain speed. The light at the beginning of the universe hadn't had time to reach the Earth yet. That's the theory, right? So the farther we look into space, the further back we can see in time. So we can see the background radiation, and the farther out we look, the closer the background radiation is. So the universe is expanding, right? That's about the closest we get to being able to actually observe the origins of the universe.
Right.
And it still doesn't quite get us there, which is really interesting. But Christians, in response to claims being made by those who are intellectuals who claim to be practicing science, even if what they're claiming isn't falsifiable, Christians, in response to that, have come up with several different theories regarding the Genesis account, right? One of the theories is the day-age theory, right? Each day represents a period of thousands or millions or billions of years. And that gives way to evolutionary creationism, right? So if you're evolutionary creationist,
which causes all kinds of doctrinal problems.
Especially when you get to Exodus chapter 20, when Moses says explicitly, God did all this in 6 days. And you can't get around that claim, right? So if you're going to believe the Bible, there's no getting around well, this is in 6 days. Okay. Right. Other than the day-age theory, there's the gap theory, right, which plays on the 1 day. So there was 1 day, and then who knows how much time went by, and then there was a 2nd day, and who knows how much time went by, and then there was a 3rd day, and who knows how much time went by, and then there was a 4th day, right? Now that becomes difficult too, still because of Moses' claim. Yeah. So that defeats that one too. Like, no, that's happened in 6 days. Which is why we have a week, which is why you have a Sabbath rest. Okay, and that's Moses' argument, right?
Let's enter the Sabbath rest that lasts for 1,000 years.
Hey, amen to that.
Let's adopt that mentality just there.
So you have day-age theory, gap theory, and you have literal 24-hour days that are consecutive days. You have that theory, people who hold to that theory, and those are the most prominent ways that Christians, people who claim to be Christians, look at this text, look at Genesis chapter 1. Yep. But we've already talked about how if you're going to believe the Bible and every part of the Bible, especially the Mosaic literature here, the Torah, which makes the claim, this is in 6 days, within the confines of 6 days, you can't go beyond that literal 24-hour day consecutive mindset. And so you're thinking, okay, I'm a Bible-believing Christian now. Where does that leave me in light of modern science or modern claims that claim to be scientific, right? Where does that leave me, especially since they're saying their view of origins and the beginning of the universe is fact, and they're calling it fact. Where does that leave us? Well, it leaves us investigating, okay? So think about the fact that a scientific claim must be falsifiable, and you ask them, is your claim falsifiable? They'll have to admit, not really. Not really falsifiable. Okay, so it is a truth claim. You're saying what you believe, but it's impossible to be proven as fact. That is your hypothesis, but it's not a testable hypothesis, right? So that's really outside the realm of science, and what they're doing is actually in the realm of religion, which they won't admit, right? And what we're doing is just as much in the realm of religion, but we're okay with that. And so these claims aren't falsifiable either. Both claims are since they're not falsifiable, must be taken on the basis of faith.
Sure.
Both claims, either way you go. And so instead of saying, I'm going to prove this as scientific fact, which can't be done, right? Instead of saying that, you say, well, which claim is actually more reasonable to believe? And so we start asking this question. Now we're having quite a different conversation.
Yeah.
Right. Which claim is more reasonable to believe? Is it more reasonable to believe that something didn't cause creation to expand from an infinitesimal point of near infinite gravity and energy, right? In fact, is it more reasonable to believe that there was an infinitesimal point of near infinite gravity and energy that could possibly exist without anything preceding it, right? Or is it more reasonable to believe that there is a timeless God whose first action resulted in space-time?
Right.
Right. And when you start thinking about that, you start thinking about Occam's razor. Occam's razor is a philosophical claim that the simplest explanation is usually the correct explanation, right? It's on the edge of it. It's best to believe the simplest explanation for things. And when you start going into Big Bang cosmology, as much of that as I like and I geek out about, right? It's such a complicated explanation for origins.
For sure.
And you have to do so many gymnastics to maintain that. Whereas if you say, no, it makes more sense that there is a being who's timeless, who is transcendent, and whose first action resulted in space-time. Well, that's quite a simple explanation, actually.
Yeah.
And it would make sense, and you don't have to try to go beyond that because that's the end all be all. That's the beginning of all things, right? And so when it comes to matters of scientific method, matters of philosophical inquiry, it's actually more reasonable to believe that God spoke, and that's the beginning of all things.
Right.
God spoke. He said something that resulted in everything.
Yeah. I mean, it's hard. It's hard to imagine what you look at creation. You look at the things that we love. I mean, and enjoy, and how can this cup of coffee have just kind of over time become beautiful and tasteful and so aromatic, there's so much to the sunsets and beauty that we see in people, and like to think that it just all came from nothing is a depressing and inconsistent view to have too, because when you look at the different explanations of where the beginning was, you don't, like, no one lives like we are meaningless. Right. Nobody believes that, as far as like operating, like you might say it, but you don't believe that like your existence is worthless and the things you say are purposeless. Otherwise you wouldn't say them. Right. Why are you speaking? Yeah.
Or even if philosophically, so there are quite a few people who philosophically are nihilist, right? Mm-hmm. And nihilism is the idea that there is no meaning. People are without purpose. All we are is we're space dust. We're star sprinkles, or whatever, right? That's all we are. We're products of evolutionary processes, and our lives are basically pointless. Morality doesn't mean a thing. It doesn't matter how much you learn. It doesn't matter how much you know. It doesn't matter how you live. It doesn't matter if you discipline your kids. None of that matters. There are people who philosophically take that position, That's what they believe philosophically,
Mm-hmm.
right? But then they live, and
Very
it just,
differently.
it doesn't match up.
Yep.
Because if we're choosing to live, we're acting like we have some kind of meaning.
Right.
That's it.
Right.
You know.
I also like and I wish I had seen this more recently to remember the details of it. But even when it comes to, and this is one of the reasons that we need to just be faithful when we believe what we see spoken, is like the shortness of that initial whatever the beginning of creation was for both views, the both main views. Science is revealing a shorter time frame that everything was created.
Well, it's very interesting because the leading scientists today will say the Earth is young and the universe is young, but they mean something completely different. Young is 4.5 billion years.
Only a few billion.
Only a few billion. We still got a long way to go. Earth isn't perishing yet. Unless you destroy it, dang millennials. Oh, wait, that's me. I can't say that.
Stop driving your cars and having babies.
Actually, I think millennials care more about trying to protect the environment than most generations preceding.
I could see that.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know if that's a sense of self-righteous, we can do better than you or not. I don't know.
I mean, our worldview would say that, well, because of the knowledge that's taking over the world and the order that's taking over chaos and restoring things back to how God originally intended them, that's what's been happening over the past generation. We've been seeing that take place.
Yeah.
The information we have to work on alone is helping us make better decisions with our health.
Yeah.
With the decisions we make about the world around us and how we interact with people. Knowledge is becoming greater. The information is being discovered.
Right. Well, and people are reasoning about more things too now. So before, the philosophers of old, they would reason about the nature of existence, right? And now we're reasoning about things like ethics and justice, and what do these terms actually mean, right? So I remember reading John Locke's The Treatises of Government, and he talked a lot about ethics and justice, and that gave way to modern politics and civil rights movements in a major way, which is kind of cool. So it's interesting to see what things people are reasoning about now, whereas before, like people would just go to war, and one country would just totally slaughter another country and civilians and everything, and now people are like, wait,
you don't really see that.
Ethics. Ethics.
Yeah.
And you have countries, governments thinking about war ethics. And if not like practical, not in a sincere way, at least like how will our people perceive this? But they're thinking about ethics and thinking about justice and civil rights and the equality of people. And even if that manifests in a terrible way, people are still thinking about it, which is evidence of biblical truth, like the Bible, the prophecies in Scripture being fulfilled. I love seeing that, even if I disagree with the way it manifests. Right. It's cool.
Absolutely.
Really cool.
See people revealing the truthfulness of God accidentally.
Even atheists like thinking about social justice. It doesn't make sense, but they're trying so hard, and it's like, y'all, you're doing what Jesus promised you would do.
You say you're Stardust, man. What are you doing trying to explain purpose?
Oh, yeah, it's not Star Sprinkles.
Injustice.
It was Stardust, not Star Sprinkles. I said Star Sprinkles earlier.
Star Sprinkles?
Okay, so can we think maybe scientifically or reasonably, does a literal 24-hour consecutive 6-day creation, does that make sense? I mean, doesn't
scientifically?
Yeah. I mean, we just have to say, would it make sense? Because we can't go back and just prove it like with a scientific method. right? We ultimately have to have faith in something.
Yeah.
Now, my belief in that comes one from the reliability and authenticity of Scripture, right? So
Right.
a lot of textual criticism there says, hey, this document is reality. It reflects reality well, it's reliable, because in every way it can be tested against reality. It proves to be an accurate description of real events like that actually happen in the world.
Like the flood.
Like the flood, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's a pretty... It's
a big one, yeah. And it's authentic, which means we have enough textual evidence to show it actually came from the sources it claims to come from, overwhelmingly so, right? So that's big for me. I can take the position, hey, what this set of documents says, I can believe it based on its reliability and authenticity because it's been tested and it's been tried for thousands of years.
Right.
Right? So I take my belief in Genesis 1 mainly based on authenticity and reliability, but then the claims in the creation story, they just make sense with the scientific mindset. So you have plants that are created. Today we saw the creation of plants, right? Well, plants can't exist without what? Well, bees. Plants can't exist without nutrients in the soil. Plants can't exist without manure being spread across the earth, right? Plants just don't exist without that. But you have the creation of plants first. And from the scientific, like I say scientific, I mean the majority intellectual claim of the day, right? The majority academic claim of the day, you have plants coming into existence and aeons before multicell animals are roaming the earth and pooping on the ground. And plants lived that whole time without dying. They sucked all the nitrogen out of the soil, in the first ages or whatever, and a long time goes by before there are animals to put nutrients back in the ground, before there are bees to carry pollen and whatever. And you're telling me those plants survived? Now that it seems pretty far-fetched to me.
Right.
You have animals created. Animals can't exist without plants. And so there's a symbiotic nature to this relationship. They both need each other. So they have to come into existence in proximity to each other. And so do the animals, so do the insects, so do the birds, right? And the fish of the sea and all that, the algae, everything, it has to come into existence in proximity, right? If it doesn't come into existence in proximity, then you're going to suck all of one element totally out of the earth, and when the other comes into being, it's going to be impossible, right? So if plants exist, another thing you see is they're going to suck all the carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere, pump oxygen into the atmosphere. It's going to become oxygen rich, and the plants are going to die because there's no more carbon dioxide to breathe, right? Before animals come in, and the animals are going to come in and suck all the oxygen out of the air and produce a bunch of carbon dioxide, and the earth is going to superheat and die. Like, that's what happens over long periods of time. It's just pretty far-fetched to me. So everything has to come into existence in close proximity. So even if I'm thinking about this and trying to reason through this, like with a scientific mindset and not even looking at the Bible, those truth claims, they're ultimately going to fall apart because the story they're presenting, it actually produces a dead earth by the time we get to where we are now. And it just doesn't work, But that had nothing to do with the text. I just got really excited about it.
Yes, as I can tell.
Dude, if I don't put nutrients in the soil for my peppers now, my peppers die. Like, that's evidence.
Today's episode, all you want to know about gardening.
All you want to know about gardening.
And why you need
poop. This is a crappy life. I hope you love it.
Crappy, purposeless life.
Oh man,
there's no hope. I don't know how to springboard off science.
Yeah. Well, just the intricacy of ecosystems, and the fact that even today, and it's amazing how leading scientists in the field, right, will say if you remove one element from an ecosystem,
right,
that ecosystem will most likely die.
Yep.
how do you have that and like evolution over billions of years? You can't, because you have to have ecosystems come about in proximity because they're interdependent. There's no such thing as independence anywhere in creation. God is the only independent being, right? I mean, you can only have evolution like we're talking about over billions of years, macroevolution, right? If there is independence of organisms, if one organism can survive without another in an ecosystem, and you just can't have that. Evidence shows us today, and we can observe that because we see rainforests die today. We see ecosystems die,
right?
Because people don't take care of them because of poachers, right? So it's take care of the bees. It's like that Jerry Seinfeld movie.
Take care of the bees, no doubt. Yeah. What we need to do is have a redo of the Bill Nye debate.
Yeah.
Maybe even just on a Zoom call, we could do an episode, and then I feel like
we could play Bill Nye's claims, and then we could debate them.
That's totally feasible.
Yeah.
Or you could debate that.
I don't know about that.
Don't start talking to me about astrophysics and micro surface turfing or whatever you call it. Or terraforming. Sorry, terraforming on new planets and ecosystems. It's just not even something I've.
Dude, I'm excited about
terraforming.
I'm ready to get it. I'm jumping right into terraforming now.
that could be fun, actually.
Yeah.
So maybe we can act that one out.
I saw The Martian. Matt Damon, man, transforming the surface of Mars.
That was fun. Yeah, I like that.
Yeah. All right, so where do you want to go from here? It's a hard transition, so let's just cut it off and just start where you're going to start.
I don't know. Yeah. You just geeked out on me for too long there.
I'm sorry.
I can't find my train of thought here. All great. Really good.
Everyone watching this episode should buy Astrophysics for Babies and read it to their children.
Oh, please, no. If you read something like that to the Duffies, you're gonna help me put them to sleep for the night.
You're welcome.
It's different minds. I know. That's why I'd be very grateful. Maybe I should buy it.
That's what I read to my son. Quantum physics is the latest one we're reading. Quantum physics for babies.
Yeah. Different interests for different minds.
I guess so.
Well, I think of...
Dude, I can't find anybody to talk about this stuff with. People don't want to talk about it.
You still have it, because I'm not it.
Sorry. You just gotta...
I'm trying to track with you, man. But
forgive me while I geek out.
But maybe start with one of the topics, and I could work with something like that. But I think we handled like the gamut of all of creation. So pretty much we could just end Genesis now and move on to the next book.
Exodus. That's next. Let's skip over all the stuff that prepares us for Exodus and just get right to it.
Yeah.
Just get right to the deliverance.
You know, it would be interesting to think about, what was it? So you did some explaining on the separations here that people get confused over in the narrative that Genesis is. So you have God creating, and then it's like, and then it seems like he does again. So you have something like, I'm trying to find one of the examples I see here. You have verse 3, God creating light, and so you have the expanse in verse 6. Wow, that just got really dark. So light, expanse he called heaven, which I don't know why, and probably the geekiness thing happening, like I just keep thinking of that TV show.
Which one?
Expanse.
The Expanse. I got you.
And God said, "Let the water." So the water's light. You got vegetation. Where is it? And let there. Man, I see now. I had this. Help me remember. It's one of the critiques. Is it the stars? God made. Oh, here, and God made two great lights. So I'm jumping ahead a little bit.
All right. Yeah, we haven't gotten there yet. Come on, man. I'm just kidding.
You've got creating like. Oh, we're probably gonna be doing Unraveled next week. So.
Oh yeah, so we might as well. Let's go ahead.
You've got creating the light, and then you have statements like God creating two great lights. So.
Yeah, so what he creates the cosmos, leading up to the first evening and morning, and then he creates light after that, and then he creates stars after he creates light, and then he creates the sun and moon after he creates stars. But they're supposed to govern the light.
Problems here,
but those stars, the sun and the moon, they're supposed to govern the light that's on the earth. But God created the light that's on the earth before the sun and the moon, and it's people bringing up arguments like that, and I'm just going to go straight to sometimes when God is saying "let there be," it's revelation and not creation, and I think Moses is pretty clear about that. Like when God said "let there be an expanse," Moses writes, God made the expanse. Like that's when He's making it right then. And other times He says, and God said, "let there be two great lights in the sky to govern, the day and the night." And there was, right? And so some of it I think is creation, some of it I think is revelation there on the 6 days. And I think that deals with the problem quite beautifully, because Moses isn't trying to give us the minutia, the exact order of when everything was exactly specifically created, but he is giving us a chronology of when things are revealed upon the earth. And so in that we have God as creator and revealer, the God who breathes things into existence and commands them.
Right.
Like that's what we get in Genesis 1. That's not how people read Genesis 1. They read it and go, no, that's not the right order of things, or they try to defend an exact order of when things popped into existence, and that's not what Moses is trying to do. Right. And even starting next week, we're going to see a poetic structure there with the first 3 days and the second 3 days, and how there are parallelisms leading up to the creation of humankind, and then the Sabbath rest, which is actually the focal point of the creation story, is creation of humankind on the 6th day and the Sabbath rest on the 7th day. And that's where the focal point should be. But nobody focuses on that because they're so concerned about all this other stuff. They completely miss the importance of those last 2 days.
Right.
So I'm excited to get there.
Yeah, me too.
I'm real excited.
That was one of the things I was thinking. I was like, man, I don't think we've actually probably said this a few times now. Like as far as what's been preached in a church, like never been there either. Never heard. I mean, maybe. There was never Genesis. I was thinking there was going to be one example, but that was not Genesis.
Yeah. Oh, I've been preparing to walk through Genesis for a while.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, which makes me really excited about it, because for the longest time I was just like, I'm not ready to do this. Genesis 1 through 11 just boggled my mind too much for me to try to preach or teach through it. Which is one of the reasons I chose to do my academic work in Genesis 1 through 11.
Yeah.
Right. Preparing to talk about the doctrine of reprobation and the process thereof. Like, how do the dead die? How do those who are destined for hell get to hell? Like that was my focus when I was focusing on doctoral work pretty heavily. And I'm still thinking about that quite a bit, but Genesis 1 through 11 play a lot into it, because that Genesis 1 through 11 produces the typology that we see through the rest of the Old Testament, and then the fulfillment in the New Testament regarding election, soteriology,
right.
And the other side of that, reprobation, which nobody wants to talk about. Like, people ask me what I was writing about, what my dissertation was going to be about. I'm like, reprobation. They're like, oh, turned away. Like,
what's on TV tonight?
But it's important to think about,
It sure is.
And nobody's writing about it.
Yeah.
So
is nobody writing about it?
Almost nobody's writing about
Almost nobody.
Yeah. The only things that I've seen in my area of study have just been brief statements that are made, and it's almost like authors want to stop there. They don't want to say anymore, because it's almost on the, I don't don't want to say on the fringe of theology because that carries kind of negative connotations.
Yeah.
I say on the hem of theology.
The ham of theology.
The ham. No, but it's that's the point, right? When you're doing doctoral work, is to find something that hasn't been talked about much and to talk a lot about it.
Sure.
Yeah. Anyway, yeah, Genesis 1 through 11. Come to Douglas Reformed Church, y'all. We're getting it. Oh, man. Yeah, anything else, man?
No, my head's still spinning a little bit of astroturfing.
Astral projection? Is that what you
Astral projection.
I think we moved out of the realm of science on that one. That sounds like it's mysticism again.
Yeah.
It's easy to get back into mysticism when you don't want to just deal with the text. It's real easy to get there. But no, it's not the Christian way.
Right.
Christian way is reason and understanding. And the providence of God, which we covered today too. Man, we could talk for hours about that probably.
Yeah.
Yeah. But we're out of time. So, thank you guys for joining us. It's been Blacktop Pulpit by Douglas Reformed Church. Yeah.
Live.
We're right here.
Live next week.
Yeah, we probably should be live. That'd be awesome. Just gotta render it and upload.